Doodlebud here. Just finished grinding the nib on this pen. This is a Gravitas Kyuseido Kakari. Comes with a 14 karat gold nib. This one, as you can see there, it's a fine, super wet nib, very juicy, has a Nico ebonite feed. But for whatever reason, as smooth as it was, and as juicy and smooth as a writer that it was, I just didn't use it a ton. I just kept looking at this pen, feeling the nib should be a little more special, a little something different. Took me a while to figure out what that different was for this pen. I could grind it to a cursive italic. I could maybe make it a really fine point. I could do all sorts of things with it. But then when I really looked at the tipping on here, this thing just started screaming out architect. So that's what I did. I ground this to an architect nib, and I absolutely love this pen. Now, it was fantastic before the grind. It's all personal preference, but now I'm in love with this pen. And there's also something extra I discovered after grinding this to an architect nib. It's a little secret, I guess, or a little special feature that architect nibs are really, really good at. I'm going to show you that in a second, too. If you want to learn more about this pen, I have a review dedicated all about it. Go check it out. I'll have a link in the description. You can see a bunch. You'll also be able to see the writing sample beforehand. I unfortunately didn't record myself doing the grind. I really want to focus on this one, and it's tough to make a video and do a great job at something at the same time, so I didn't do the footage. But the good news is I have other videos where I have done that, so you can give it a look. What we'll do now, though, is just quickly go through what a tipping ball looks like and how you convert it into an architect grind. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending you do this, but I'm just going to show you what mine looks like and what the process is. Hopefully I answer some questions. So here we're looking head on at a tipping ball, and you can see it's reasonably round as best I can draw. And because it's uniform, it's a circle, let's use this big pen with a giant blob of tipping on the end as an example. So it's round, and what that means is no matter the direction that you go with the pen, you get a nice consistent line. With this nib now, it doesn't have a consistent line. It has a very thin downstroke or upstroke, either way you go. And then the cross strokes are much, much thicker now. The tipping is no longer round. We have a slit in the middle, and it's flat on both sides. So it's got a thin flat spot, and then the rest of it, it's sort of tough to draw this on here, but it's more wedge shaped now. What I'm going to do now is just get out here it is. This is my probe lens. So this is a macro lens. We're going to get you up and close to the tipping so you can really see what I'm talking about. I brought that other pen I showed earlier here as an example. So this has a large round tipping ball, but you can see it's round. It's uniform. The one I ground now, the shoulders have been pulled back, so it's a wedge. The slit runs right down the centers, but now it sort of looks like a knife edge. I'll rotate it here gently so you can get a better look at what the side profile of that tipping now looks like. So you might wonder, why would you want the tipping on your fountain pen nib to look like that? One, obviously, it changes the character. And apparently I don't write Arabic, but I have one of my friends that does. He tried out an architect nib. I asked him to do it. He actually even studied like Persian calligraphy. I did a video on this a long time ago, but he really enjoyed the profile on an architect nib for those types of characters. Again, I don't write those characters, so why would I want an architect nib? One thing I find is it's really, really nice for block writing. So most of my printing is this type of style. This, I guess, just comes from my engineering background. And this is the type of style of writing I would do all the time. If I was writing out some documents, ultimately everything would be typed. But if I was doing some drawings and doing some sketches, everything was block, all caps. And I have to tell you, an architect nib, which produces thicker cross strokes versus thin downstrokes, is the absolute ticket when you come to block writing. Another thing I discovered is that drawing straight lines with an architect nib is extremely easy. Let me get a better angle because I'm going around the camera. But when you go to draw a line, let's say we just want vertical thin lines all parallel to each other. When you use an architect nib, because of that wedge shape, it sort of acts like a knife. If you think about even, say, skates on ice, they just want to go straight. They dig into the ice and they just glide right across, and they'll just keep going straight. Same with a knife. When you pull back, it just wants to go straight back. It doesn't want to go wavy. It doesn't want to wiggle. It just wants to cut straight down. So if your drawing style requires a lot of lines and you want them to be fairly straight, and especially if they have to be really close to each other, that can be a tricky task for a regular nib. Let me get another pen with a fine point and see how I can do comparatively. I have another 14 karat gold nib. It's a fine point. This is a much finer point, and I'm going to try to draw some long straight lines like I did here and see how straight and parallel I can get them. As my terrible drawing of what the profile of an architect tipping looks like, I'm no artist, but you can see here drawing some straight vertical lines all side by side. I have a little bit of a blip here, but it's quite easy to get just fairly straight lines without much wave to it and very parallel to each other and close by. With another fine point nib, like there's a lot of waviness going on in here, and I am not a trained hand, so artists who are out there are much, much better than me. But whenever I need to do very straight lines, if I'm doing a sketch or drawing and I require straight long lines, I tell you, the architect grind makes it super easy and just has to do with that wedge shape. You have that knife edge going into the page and you're pulling back or pushing forward and it just wants to go straight. Now, when it comes to cursive writing, I find it doesn't look as nice. It's just a thick line. You don't really get much line variation. That also depends on the hand and pen angle to the page. It's nice and smooth. Some architect nibs can be quite sharp and pointy. This one I spent a little time on it, getting it just where I like it. So it is quite smooth when it comes to writing. It's really, really nice. But I find where it really shines is in that printing. Those vertical strokes, so I'm holding the pen more up and down instead of at an angle, or else if you hold it at an angle, you just don't quite get that same characteristic that this nib can do. So you can see with the block printing, it has a little more flair. It stands out, it pops. With the cursive, you have to write quite big. This is now writing as thick as probably a broad or double broad nib at that angle. And you might like that, but I just find cursive looks better, say with a stub or an oblique. Here is an oblique nib, and let's write the same word. You can see here, they look completely different. They both look nice, but I find when it comes to cursive, an oblique is fantastic. Now you may find you might not always want a architect nib on this pen. It might not suit all occasions, so I took some time with this one to preserve the reverse side of it. So on the reversed, it still writes quite nicely. It's more like I guess probably more like an extra fine. The nib is wet enough where you still get okay flow. It's still quite a bit drier. It's a lot drier than the other side, but it's wet enough. And so if you need to do some fine printing, you don't have much space, or just some finer writing, or you're just doing a tiny little bit of detail work and you need to get in there with just a regular fine point or extra fine point nib, the flip side on this one works, and we still get enough flow. So if you just want to do some cursive a little bit smaller, you can do it here. I tried that line challenge again with these two pens. This time I moved the camera to a different angle so it was out of the way so I can get the pad exactly where I want it. So I'm very comfortable and was just focusing on drawing straight lines. And so you can see I had one little wobble here with the architect. That was just my hand adjusting a little bit when I did that one. But you can see for someone who doesn't do any drawings or anything, my lines here are much, much straighter. This was terrible. I was actually really trying to do it. The first one was good, but I just found it would really start to wander a lot if I went slow. If I went fast, I adjusted my hand position, ended up smudging at the bottom. But I got a little bit better here, but still lots of wobble and waves in my lines. I found the nib would just sort of wander along a little bit. When you have an architect grind, those straight lines, whether you're pushing or pulling down, sometimes you want to push up because you sort of need to see where you're going. When you're pulling down, your hand is sort of blocking the direction you're going. But even if you're pushing up with the architect nib, you can pull off a very, very straight line. And for me, if I try to do that on a pull down, it's much easier, but on a push-up on a regular nib pen, wow, it's extremely tough to do it. With here, you can just go straight up. You can see where you're going. If I want to just go parallel to this line, I can get a better view of that and get it super close and just get a nice straight line with it. So that is one thing I've noticed with architect nibs, unintended consequence. No wonder I like it with block letters, because you are sort of straight up and straight down, side to side type thing. So I think that's why I like it so much. But if you're into artwork and want to have thin lines, easier to draw lines as well, but also you can switch up your line size anytime you want. An Architect nib is super handy. The only drawback with Architect nibs is they're just not overly available. It's usually not a standard nib size that's available on pens. I know Esterbrook does have their nib program, so they have different nibmeisters offering different nib point sizes and shapes. There's like super fine points. There's cursive italics. There's this one. This was done by Josh Lax. This is his Architect grind. He names it the Scribe, so there's that Architect point that's on there. And this thing is tons of fun to use. So that's one place you can get them. There's other places. There's someone called Bobby. I don't know who Bobby is, but he does some different grinds. One of them is an Architect grind. I think they're available in number 5 and number 6 nibs, potentially some other sizes as well. Usually that's on Esty. And the odd other place, typically you got to send your pen off and find someone to give it a grind for you. Just as a heads up, because this video will trigger a series of emails. I got 4 just in the last 4 days. I only do nib grinds for myself. So if you want to send me a message and say, could you do to my pen what you did to that? Unfortunately, no, I just don't have the time for that. But the good thing is there's folks who are way more qualified than I am, who have ground hundreds, if not thousands of nibs. There's some super talented nibmeisters out there who would be more than happy to take your order. I would just recommend going on Google and look for nibmeisters near you. No matter where you are in the world, find one that's in a decent location that you can correspond with. They'll do a great job. So that wraps things up. I hope it helps you better understand Architect nibs, learn a little bit more about it, and also cool little feature about Architect nibs. If you're big into drawing lines, these are fantastic for that. I knew that was there all along, but once I started playing with this one, I just started drawing lines and checking the nib to make sure it was tuned properly and ground just the way I like it. And I found, wow, this thing is fantastic for drawing lines. So if that's for you, definitely want to check out one of these. Also, feel free to check out my channel, all my other videos. You can do that by leaving a thumbs up, so maybe appear in your feed, potentially hit a subscribe. Check the description for details. Love to hear from you in the comments as well. We will catch you next time.